See a chiropractor. What happens is if our back is out, we'll get tennis elbow. So to help avoid carpal tunnel and tennis elbow, if you keep your back in line, that usually takes care of everything else. Okay? See, and like here's a common chart that the chiropractors use. So see, like here, if this part of your back is out, that would affect your arms and your elbows down, including hands, wrists, and fingers. Okay, so as you move through your career, you want to become a classical guitar player. Eat healthy, exercise daily, try to keep your weight in control. Why become a professional at classical guitar and then die young from some unhealthy behavior? So eating healthy will help prevent disease and cancer. By having a healthy diet, exercising daily, it helps to prevent other things from happening to you. So stay away from booze, no drugs. You don't need that stuff. I can think of at least a handful of people that I know that have died from alcohol, from booze. One fella worked a factory, always skinny or just normal, healthy, strong. But every day after work, he'd stop at the VFW and have a few beers. And as he got older, it caught up with him. And from drinking alcohol, his liver gave out. In late 50s, he blew up like a doughboy. When the liver fails, you blow up. That's one of the signs of liver failure. Drugs, we've all heard of nightmare stories with drugs. You don't need that stuff. Don't get into the groupies. I don't know if they have them for classical guitar players, but stay away from the wild woman. If you pick up a STD, it can kill you now in 6 months. Use condoms. Be picky about your partners. Don't be perverted. Nothing wrong with having a little fun. Don't be weird about it. Be normal. Find your wife or your husband, have some kids, and have a good career as a classical guitar player. Don't let all these things up here, drugs, booze, sex, derail your musical career before you even get started. You start studying now, you go to college, you come out of college and you got a disease. You went to college, had a few wild nights, and you pick up a disease. Or you come out of college as an alcoholic. When you go to college, 4 good years of study. Okay? Not partying. Last I knew, there's a 75% dropout rate at college. Okay? 75%. That means 3 out of 4 people will drop out. So those people that you see going out partying every night, those are most likely going to be the people that drop out. Okay? So 75% dropout rate of the people who do go to college. So that 25% that don't drop out, only 1% actually graduates. Okay? You can take classes forever and not graduate. You have to take the right classes. Okay? So all I'm saying here is try to lead a normal life and have a good career as a classical guitar player. Okay, so I can go on about this stuff forever. When I taught music in my own store, the guys would call me Preachin' Jimmy. Preachin' Jimmy. So it's not really preaching. It's just, hey, don't be crazy about it. There's nothing wrong with partying, but there's a big difference between an alcoholic and partying, or a drug addict and partying. Okay, so just be normal about it. When you play your guitar, play with love. Okay? Just let me read through this and then we'll talk about it. Love and emotion must come from your guitar's sound hole. Don't just pluck the notes. If you just pluck the notes, the music sounds mechanical. Put love into every note you play and your music will be great. Life is not the guitar, but guitar adds love and beauty to your life. Have a good life, raise a family. The happiness in your heart will create beautiful music from your guitar. Jesus said it's all about love. I recommend you choose a religion and go to church. I recommend you choose a religion and go to church. It's a common saying that a hard life of a blues guitar player creates better blues music. So the flip side of that, the happy life of a classical guitar player will create better classical guitar music. Something I've noticed with a lot of YouTube videos on classical guitar, the music just sounds very mechanical. It's so nice to see a video when somebody enjoys playing the song they're playing. I mean, you can really tell a difference if you know what you're looking at. Don't just pluck the notes. We've all done this type of thing, and of course when you first learn, that's what you're going to do. You're just going to pluck the notes. But as you get into a song, make sure there's more than just the notes behind what you play. Okay? When I was studying piano with that 82-year-old woman, I was already in my late 30s. Been playing guitar for years. I was just getting into the piano. And that's something that she really stressed on my piano playing, because she knew she didn't have many years to get this into me. It's like I'm thinking to myself, I can barely move my fingers up and down, and she's stressing, put emotion into the notes that you play, because that was the important thing that she wanted to get across to me. Put the emotion into your notes. Don't just pluck the notes. Okay? This line here, this is from a famous actress. I saw her on a talk show. She had a stroke, and I think she had what they call a near-death experience or something like that. And when she came back, she said, Jesus said it's all about love. That she had went to the other side. I guess I don't remember the exact interview, but she had went and come back, and Jesus told her it was all about love. So put love into your music. You choose your religion. I'm not saying pick one over the other. Just pick one and go to church. Church or whatever they call it. When you play your classical guitar music, make sure the melody comes out. Something I've seen, I do it myself. We just play everything all at once. Playing the bass notes, the chords, and the melody. But you don't really hear the melody coming out. We're playing the bass notes with the thumb, we're playing the chords with our other fingers, and the actual melody of the song, sometimes you can't hear it. Write your own music. It seems like lots of classical musicians, all they do is play other people's music. Well, sooner or later, somebody's got to write a new song, right? We all go back and play Beethoven songs. We all go back and play Mozart songs. Well, what would you think of a rock band that only played Beatles songs? They never wrote their own songs. Well, they're never actually really going to make it, right? You have to write your own songs as a rock band to actually make it. Why should it be any different for a classical musician? So I recommend jumping ship, meaning the world of classical guitar, most of them just play other people's music, and write your own music. Now, of course, that's tough. Okay? So, you have to learn to be creative. You have to learn to be unique. Okay? So there's an old saying, write from yourself and then it will be new. That comes from a famous songwriter, I think back in the 50s or 60s. I had that saying on my keyboard at my music store for 8 years. And it's from a famous songwriter. And I don't remember his name, and I tried to find it. But if you write from your own experiences, then it will be new. Now, of course, there's not words in classical music. But, writing chords and melodies. So we'll do more videos on that later. I have a few videos up on melodies. That's like the general gist of how to write a melody. But we'll definitely do a lot more on that later. So like Elvis and Sinatra, Perry Como, Bing Crosby, those are some like the old timers, Dean Martin. They only sang other people's music and made a good living and made a good career at it. So, if you apply this to like movies, movie screenwriters do not rewrite other movies, right? That would be absurd. You have to create something new. Then why shouldn't we, as a classical guitar player, why shouldn't we create something new? It seems like the business is stuck in only play classical music that was written by all these other players. That's what they expect of us. Some people have broken out and written their own songs, but in general, it seems like the world of classical music is stuck in this thing where they only play Bach and Beethoven and Mozart and all these other guys. So classical music is an art form, right? Classical music is not just a copy form. Classical music is an art form. So be an artist and write music. If you were going to be a painter, would you only copy other people's paintings? You may when you first get started, you're trying to learn the business, but eventually you got to start painting your own thing, painting your own paintings. Same thing with music, same thing with classical guitar. Sooner or later you got to start writing your own songs. Okay? I just happened to bump into this free software here. You can use this to create your music. It doesn't write the notes for you, but it creates the staff, it creates the notes, so it looks professional. So that's pretty cool that they give it out for free. And I'll do some videos on that later on too. Here's their main page. Muse Score. See, score is like the This here would be like a musical score. You can download the software. World's most popular notation software. Pretty cool. Here's a painting by Picasso called Musicians. Pretty crazy, right? Musicians are sometimes seen as crazies, but that's just a stereotype. It takes a lot of hours sitting in the room by yourself, studying real hard, practicing real hard to be a good musician. When they come out and they're seen as crazies, it's just an act. That's how they get popular. The quiet musicians sitting in the back, they don't really get popular. They might be popular as part of the band, but it's the world we live in now, the crazy person up front is the one that gets noticed. So what I'm saying here is, don't be a nut. Let your music stand on its own. If you have good music, you'll rise to the top, right? Bathe in mud. See? Saying crazy stuff is just stupid. Don't be a crazy musician. Nothing wrong with being a little out there, right? Eccentric, I think they call it, for artistic reasons. But remember, it's just an act. Okay, so I've flipped through a lot of classical guitar books preparing for this series, and they all seem to presume that you already know how to read music, or they skim through it pretty quickly. Okay, so what I'd like to do is start with the basic Alfred's book to kind of get your fingers going on the fretboard and learning to play with a pick. And then I also have some custom sheets that I made to help people learn notes. They're real simple, all the same note, just to learn that note on that string. Okay. And then I like the fake books. Let's see here. Fake books are just big, thick books. Here, I'll find one on Amazon. So, like, this would be a fake book. It's like 1,200 songs, $30 or so, and they're usually like this thick. And they'll take a song and cut it down into like a half page, and they just show you the basic melody, maybe the chords, but they're sweet and simplified. Look inside this thing here. See, here's a list of all the songs. Hopefully they'll show us one song here. So like here's one song. See, they cut it down into 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, and they just show you the basic melody. Okay? So you don't have to learn all the fancy stuff, just show me the melody. They're fun to play. We all like different songs, right? So you can flip through these books and find the ones that you like and learn to play those songs. You can go to the library. Most libraries have these fake books. They're usually in the reference section. You usually can't take them out, but you can bring them over to the copy machine, copy the ones that you want. You only need like one a month, right? Addams Family Theme is really fun to play. I have that one already written out. I've been teaching that one since the 80s and 90s. Okay? So we'll probably throw in a few of those. Okay? So that was this part. And then after we get through this stuff as quickly as possible, then we'll get into the classical guitar books. Okay? So some of you that already know how to play, you might want to jump ahead to where we get into the actual classical guitar book. I want to start at the very beginning for people that can't even move their fingers. And I think the best thing to do there is to start with this book here. That's the book that I learned on. And from all the books I've glanced through, this is still the best one. Of course, there's a lot of good books on learning to play, but there's something about the way this one is written. It's a very nice start. Okay. I bought this one here. This is the one that I want to use for the classical guitar section of the videos, mainly because it had the tab. That was really the only reason I went with this one. This looks like a good book too, and maybe we'll get into this one along with this one. And then of course I have other books that my classical guitar teacher gave me, and we'll get into some of those songs too. Okay, so from what I've seen, most classical guitar books don't teach chords. Main thing a guitar player does is play chords. Even as you're playing guitar music, you're fingering chords up here. So it would be good if you already knew the basic chords. And then as you learn your classical songs, you'll understand what you're doing here better. You're fingering the A chord and playing a couple of the notes down here. Like if we go back up here, see if I can find it here. Here's a picture of Segovia in his younger days. He's just fingering a bar chord here. And then he's picking some notes down here and playing classical music. So if you didn't understand this chord, you would think it's some type of odd thing that he's doing there. So he's actually playing a pretty standard chord. Okay? So that's why I say it would be good to learn chords. You don't have to learn all of them, just a few basic ones. So learn some of the basic chords in the open position. That's up at the top. The open strings, the first 3 or 4 frets or so. You know. And then some of the basic chords down the neck. You know, you learn a bar chord, and then you can move it all the way down. Once you learn a basic shape, it works all over the neck. Okay, we'll get into more of that later. So any good chord book will do. You probably don't even need to buy a chord book, but I would still recommend to buy at least 2. You know, that way you have 2 different versions of the same thing. You know. You don't need one of those chord books that says, "Oh, we're going to show you 100,000 chords." You know, you don't need that. You just need a handful of the basic chords. For example, we talked about the musical alphabet earlier: A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We have to learn A major, B major, C major, D major, E major, F major, and G major. And then there's the minor: A minor, B minor, C minor, D minor, so on. And then there's the 7th: A7, B7, C7, D7, and so on. So those would be the basic chords: the major chords, the minor chords, and the 7th chords. And then it would be nice to learn them in the open position at the top, but also down the rest of the fretboard. Now, you know, this type of thing takes years. You're not going to learn all this in 6 months. but I just wanted to give you a general idea where we're heading with this stuff. So like this type of thing, this would be like the theory. You know, a C chord is just the first note of the scale, the third note of the scale, and the fifth note of the scale. The scale being do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? And then a minor chord, same thing, but it's got a flat third. And then the seventh chord, same thing, but with a flat seven. Okay, so that's what I mean by theory. You don't really have to learn the theory behind it, but it's nice to know a little bit about it. We already talked about this, learn to write your own music. Some of this stuff I might have hit on twice because it took me a couple months to put this sheet together. I kind of lost track of things as I added them. There's something called a tritone. That's just the flat 5. Don't play the flat 5. Stay in key. See, like if you were gonna play in a C major scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, that fifth note of the scale, don't play the flat 5. Always stay in key, no matter what it is. And we'll talk more about that later. You can learn everything from my videos, but I still recommend that you find a nice teacher in your area, because what I can't do, I can't reach out and grab your finger and move it in a different spot. I guess if we did Skype, we could do that type of thing, but I think especially to get started, it would be nice if you could find a teacher that could help in your area. That if you're not sitting right or something doesn't look right, So find a good teacher that pushes you to improve. Not mean, but they push you to improve. Of course, all teachers must motivate you to practice and improve. That's the main thing we do. We get you to practice. Motivate to improve, not intimidate. Stay away from mean teachers. Stay away from mean teachers because they'll destroy your love for music. Okay? Some music teachers are just mean people teaching music. Some are just plain old psychotic. I heard of one old male piano teacher who was considered a great music teacher. And his students, from what I heard, played very well. But I had one parent tell me he screamed so much that parents would sit out in the car and were afraid to go in the store while their child was in the store getting a lesson. He was screaming so loud they could hear him outside. I mean, that's just psychotic. I don't care what you say. Okay, so YouTube lessons versus live music teacher. You'll be able to learn it all here in my videos, but I still recommend that you find a local teacher. There's just things that I can't look at you and say, that's not quite right there. So I recommend attend your weekly lesson, practice daily. When I taught music live, one time I had an older student say to me, my progress is not good. Okay? The first thing I did was go to the attendance record. I always kept an attendance thing. I still have them. This is 20 years later, I still have them in the basement. And count all the X's. See, every week that you attended, I'd put an X. Right? You showed up for your lesson. If you didn't show up, I'd put a 0. Right? In 1 year, he missed more than half of the weekly lessons. In 1 year. Well, that's why his progress wasn't good. Now, he was an older fella. He's probably mid-30s or so. Worked a factory, had wife. He was a volunteer fireman. There was plenty of times we'd be sitting there, his beeper would go off, he'd have to run out the door. So there's many things that contributed to him missing. But that's why I say, though, attend your weekly lesson and practice daily. Because then at the end of the year, you'll be able to play. You want to learn to play, you got to put it first on your list. It may not be first on your list, but it's got to be up toward the top. Of course, you got to go to school. Of course, you got to go to work. Of course, you got to take a bath. You got to eat, cut the grass, take the car for oil change, and all these other things. But somewhere up toward the top, you got to put practice guitar. You can't put it down at the bottom and say, I'll practice when I get everything else done. Because who gets everything done? You got to put it up towards the top. I studied piano with an older fella downtown Cleveland. He had a doctorate in music from Oberlin. That's like a real big music school in our area. 72-year-old fella said to me one time, he said, the only reason you should miss your lesson is a funeral. Yours. So, that's the idea behind this. You must always be there. If you were playing football at high school, you can't miss practice, right? If you were working, if you had a job, you can't miss. You got to be there. If you're going to school, you got to be at school, right? So, same thing here. You got to practice. You got to attend your lesson. Okay? So, we made it to page 57. That's the last page. I tried to skim through some of the stuff pretty quickly because it's pretty basic stuff. And next time we'll start with the Alfred's book. Okay, see ya.